Good morning and thank you so much for joining us on Africa This Morning. I'm Beryl Ooro. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the top stories.
This is not an exercise that is aimed at punishing anybody. This is not an exercise that is aimed at victimizing anybody.
The civil service. The government kicks off the biometric registration of public servants in an effort to eradicate ghost workers in the civil service.
His travel documents were taken away from him and only returned this morning, just before his session began.
ICC. The ICC cases against Ruto and Sang resume.
And this is tantamount to genocide. This is tantamount to ethnic cleansing. This is tantamount to forceful transfer.
Mandera insecurity. A section of northeastern politicians call for the forced disarmament in Clashton, Mandera County. Poaching. The fight against poaching is evolving as wildlife reserves take up arms against sophisticated poachers.
We start off here in Kenya. The biometric registration of public servants in both national and county governments has kicked off as the government started an audit process to get rid of ghost workers. President Uhuru Kenyatta recently said ghost workers were skimming off 1.8 billion shillings from taxpayers' money annually. The exercise is set to end next month.
This is not an exercise that is aimed at punishing anybody. This is not an exercise that is aimed at victimizing anybody. I call upon all public servants to participate willingly. It is in their interest, as much as it is in the people of Kenya's interest, for us to be able to know exactly who works for the Kenyan government and in which department they work, so that we are better able to manage the very scarce resources that we have as a nation going forward.
You instructed us, after we gave you a brief, Your Excellency, about the issue of ghost workers in government, to do a biometric registration of all civil servants. And this was incorporated in the rationalization program, which is a capacity assessment and rationalization program of government. It's a joint initiative, Your Excellency, under your instructions for both the national government and the county governments.
The Public Service Trade Unions of Kenya supports the ongoing registration of public servants. However, the Secretary General Charles Mukwaya, in an interview with Ooro Africa, says the government should not victimize genuine public servants or fire people illegally after the audit aimed at smoking out ghost workers is completed. Here's an excerpt.
We've heard the government say. What are the stakeholders saying? What is your take on this exercise?
Annette, us as stakeholders in the public service, first and foremost, the Federation of Public Service Trade Unions of Kenya sits on the intergovernmental committee that is working on this. Together with our affiliate union, the Union of Kenya Civil Servants, also has a seat on the same. And therefore, whatever the government is planning and is currently doing, starting today, in terms of this biometric registration of public servants, the unions representing these workers in the public service are aware. However, we have made our position very clear in the committee meetings and other fora that whereas the idea of registering anew workers in the public service is a noble idea, and we support the idea in the sense that if it's going to aim at streamlining the public service in terms of weeding out ghost workers, in terms of making it more efficient, in terms of redistributing public servants, so that we do not have, say for example, the national government has more workers and the county governments have less.
Workers.
We would like this exercise, if it's meant to bring that kind of parity, to ensure where there are many, we redeploy them to areas where there are less. Where there are less, we add them like that. We support the idea. However, our members are fearful that should the exercise involve or target to retrench some of the public servants or even victimize them, then we are opposed to it. And we have shared this information, and we are still telling the government the same, that we will not be supporting the idea if those two things are introduced in the whole exercise. Otherwise, streamlining the workforce, we are supporting it. That it is important that we streamline the operations within the public service now that we have two tiers of government, because there's a lot of confusion. At some levels there are fewer workers, at others there are more workers. So we feel that this exercise is going to help the government in redistributing or deploying this workforce, so that each and every sector of the government has the adequate numbers and the necessary numbers of workers to carry out the operations of the government. So we feel the exercise is noble, only that let that exercise not be used to victimize or retrench workers.
So when are you going to register yourself?
Well, for me, I think what is happening at the moment is that first they have started with the civil servants, and we strongly believe that the civil servants, once they have been done with, then the government will move to the state corporations, parastatals, and so on and so forth. So when they come, we will be willing to set ourselves.
Very available, yeah?
Very available, yes.
Thank you very much, Bwana Mkhwaya, for coming in.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. We hope everything turns out well at the end of the day.
We do hope to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand.
The trial against Deputy President William Ruto and journalist Joshua Arap Sang resumed after a month's recess. The prosecution has so far produced 21 witnesses against Ruto and Sang.
Referred to are transcripts that arise from the Waki Commission.
As the trial of Deputy President William Ruto and journalist Joshua Arap Sang resumed today, an ICC witness presented 5 grounds to the court on why he should not be compelled to testify until after 21 days. Now, above other complaints, the witness had issues with the fact that the prosecution withheld his documents, including his passport, which was only returned on Monday morning. Now, he is one of the witnesses who had recanted his statements. The witness had told the court that he is depressed and cannot withstand the rigor of testifying, and provided a medical report to support his reasons.
That fifth reason is that up to today, and it's only today, that certain documents belonging to him were released to him, and that there has been concerted efforts to sort of put him in a stressful situation, and we believe that is one of the reasons why he is not in a good state to testify today. His travel documents were taken away from him and only returned this morning, just before his session began. And the officers of the OTP had put him in a very difficult situation in regard to making too many calls to him.
So that should be sufficient.
The prosecution protested the move, saying that the witness was lying about his health status. The Victims and Witness Unit is conducting tests on the witness before reporting back to the court. The prosecution further highlighted that this had not been brought up before and did not warrant an adjournment of his testimony. The prosecution questioned the credibility of the doctor who conducted the test on the witness, saying that he is a general practitioner and not a psychiatrist. Through lawyer Jeffrey Mutai, the witness told ICC judges that he was seeking an adjournment for 21 days so that he can also get his telephone records, including M-Pesa transactions. Now, this was a request that was backed by Karim Khan and Katwa Kigen, who represents Deputy President Ruto and Sang, respectively.
The counsel for the witness to agree or stipulate as to certain facts that will even obviate the necessity of the phone records. Of course, if the counsel says they're incomplete, there's nothing to stop those phone records being obtained later on, even in the course of testimony, and for those to be provided and given to the chamber. Your Honor, the conception, of course, from the prosecution is that the conception in Kenya is that often there are benefits to being a prosecution witnesses in terms of pecuniary advantage, and that leads certain witnesses to say that there's a luxurious lifestyle. So that issue, the merits or otherwise, can be properly focused by the Victim and Witness Unit providing information they have to the chamber to the defence, and of course to the counsel for the witness.
The prosecution told us to inquire that from VWU. And we did make that inquiry to the VWU on the 24th of August 2014, and the VWU said that they are under no obligation to disclose any payments that have been made to the witness, and that if we are strongly minded to get that disclosure, then we should approach the chamber. Your Honor, that response is from VWU dated 25th of August 2014. And I thought I should just mention this, Your Honor, as an issue that may be related to what Mr. Mutai has made reference to, although we made our application completely without notice of the existence of this. Your Honor, we propose to have filed our application by Wednesday, seeking an order from the chamber to have the VWU disclose any payments that have been made to this witness. And I thought I should just highlight that because it's relevant to this issue.
The witnesses are testifying via video link at an undisclosed location in Kenya. For Ooro Africa TV, I'm Kamena Ooro.
A section of northeastern MPs have called on the government to disarm communities in Mandera County where the clan conflict continues to mount. They are also calling on the Mandera County government to take responsibility and stop blaming Al-Shabaab for the violence.
We therefore ask the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Ooro Kenyatta, and his deputy to immediately forcefully disarm all militia operating in the county. Number 2, order to disband and disarm KPR in Mandera County, just like in the case of Marsabit, which was done. 3rd, order the immediate investigation and arrest of all public officials implicated in this conflict. And lastly, order a bipartisan relief assistance for IDPs in Mandera County.
Still on security matters, Kenya will today host the Africa Union Peace and Security Council Summit on Terrorism. The meeting will be attended by a number of heads of state and governments from the continent.
The summit has on its agenda the ongoing violence by the Boko Haram sect in Nigeria, the insurgency in Mali, as well as other terror-related activities in Africa. Kenya has itself been a victim of terror, mostly blamed on the Al-Shabaab. The heads of state and governments will deliberate on how security officials in the continent can work together to rid the continent of terrorism and violent extremism. 6 presidents, including the presidents of Chad, Nigeria, Niger, Somalia, Tanzania and Uganda, have confirmed attendance. The meeting will also review the situation and the ongoing AU's efforts to combat terrorism in Africa within the framework of the AU instruments, including the cooperative mechanisms being implemented by concerned parties, as well as to agree on practical steps to enhance the implementation of the AU counter-terrorism framework at national, regional and continental levels. Delegates are expected to agree on concrete steps to enhance the ongoing efforts to effectively address the threat of terrorism. This includes early ratification and domestication of the relevant AU and international instruments, identification of steps to be taken to fight terror, mobilizing support and international coordination. The early ratification and domestication of the relevant AU and international instruments, the identification of concrete steps to be taken by the AU member states, the regional economic communities, regional mechanisms for conflict prevention, management and resolution and the AU Commission, in pursuance of the relevant AU and international instruments, and 3, the mobilization of additional support to Africa's efforts and the enhancement of international coordination and collaboration. The Peace and Security Council is the African Union's standing decision-making body responsible for the maintenance of continental peace and security. It has 15 members elected by the AU Executive Council on regional basis, 3 from Central Africa, 3 from East Africa, 2 from North Africa, 3 from Southern Africa and 4 from West Africa.
We must be resolute about
To matters on conservation, as poaching decimates Africa's elephant and rhino populations with thousands killed in the past year alone, wildlife reserves here in Kenya are increasingly taking up arms to save the lives of wildlife. For this anti-poaching unit, the day begins at dusk.
After a meal of cabbage and sweet tea, the rangers grab their rifles and march off to their night's work, protecting rhinos. Increasingly, as the tactics of poachers here in the Kenyan enclave, wildlife reserves are taking up arms to save their wildlife.
Na bado inabidi uende uokoe mnyama, so hapo naye iko riski yako hapo, unakupoteza maisha, lakini kwa sababu ya kuamua asijali hata hiyo hatari, lakini I know kuna hiyo hatari, lakini kwa sababu ya kujitolea inabidi nifanye hivyo ndio nijaribu kuokoa hiyo mnyama.
Benson is part of a new Kenyan police reservist anti-poaching team based out in Old Jogi Ranch to protect approximately 65 rhinos living here, in addition to elephants, leopards and other wildlife. In May, a ranger was shot dead here by poachers. The rangers are often drawn from a surplus of unemployed youth in the area. With the safari tourism worth more than $1 billion to the economy and 500,000 jobs, safeguarding the wildlife population is not the only motivation. To combat poaching, the reserve employs small planes, attack and tracker dogs, thermal imagery scopes and an array of weapons. But the most important tool is having boots on the ground.
It sounds crazy, but this is actually a war. It is organized crime on an international level, and it's completely out of control. And these are the guys frontline who are having to put their lives at risk in order to protect these animals.
Poachers killed 4 rhinos just last month in the deadliest attack Kenya has faced over 25 years, bringing the number of rhinos killed by poachers so far this year to 22 compared to a total of 59 last year. There are now just over 1,000 rhinos left in Kenya.
It's amazing.
Across the continent, poaching is reaching unprecedented levels, fueled by the global demand for ivory and horn, particularly in China and Vietnam, and pushing the price of rhino horn higher than gold.
If the rhino go, in my opinion, what's next? The elephant, buffalo? Where does it stop? There's always going to be a market for something. If it's not rhino horn, it'll be meat poaching, whatever. I think you've got to make a stand.
But here on the front line, protecting Kenya's wildlife is becoming an increasingly dangerous and expensive task.
We'll now take a short break, but we'll be back with more stories from Africa and the international front.